The night is torn apart by a raging storm. Soaked to the bone, a young man stands alone in a dark hallway. He reaches for the door, ready to return to the one place that should be safe. Stepping inside, he announces his arrival to his parents. He's met with a warm welcome from his mother and his bandaged father. But in an instant, the illusion of peace is shattered by a brutal act. His mother tells her son Fan Fan to just ignore the mess. And with his father's body on the floor, she asks how his blind date went. Fan Fan can barely hold himself together, the weight of this reality crushing him. He quietly answers that he won't force things, trying to maintain a sliver of normalcy. A memory surfaces of his parents standing before him, their faces lost in shadow. The world around him feels distorted, unreal. He recalls his mother's voice, her hand wrapped tightly around a kitchen cleaver. She lectured him about his future, urging him to abandon his dreams and settle down. A younger Fan Fan could only stand there, absorbing the weight of her words. Her point was driven home with a violent chop on the cutting board. But then the memory changes, and a different man stands in his place, confidently agreeing. The scene cuts to a news report of a wildly successful animation. We find that same confident man in his apartment, scrolling through his phone. He's looking at a webcomic by an author named Zhao Fan, whose fans now wonder if he's even still alive. He recalls a trip to a dam, the day he believes his talent was stolen from him. A best-selling horror artist, he remembers it as the first time he'd ever seen a real ghost. The memory is hazy. He can't be sure if he fell or if someone pulled him from the depths. All he truly remembers is waking up to an excruciating pain. Strange black markings had appeared on his arm, a living curse that felt like it was slowly killing him. But for an artist, losing the ability to create was already a kind of death. Worse still, he's trapped in this home, a place he can never seem to escape. He knows he's an orphan, and the people in this house are not his parents. In the other room, the imposters speak amongst themselves, believing their son will eventually understand. The father even suggests finding him another girl, another blind date to continue their charade. Fan Fan listens in from the other room, his expression unreadable. The woman complains that they've tried setting him up before, but it never works out. And the man adds that he always uses the same tired excuse. He realizes this exact conversation has been on a loop for a week, like a scene from one of his own stories. It hits him then. This isn't a nightmare. His horror manga is bleeding into reality. His attention is suddenly pulled to a breaking news report on the television. Police are searching for a bandaged man, a suspect in a gruesome mass disappearance. A wave of terror washes over Fan Fan. This event never happened before. It's playing out just like his script. But just as he processes this, the screen suddenly goes black. He turns to find the imposter mother standing right behind him, remote in hand. The imposter father is suddenly right behind him, his voice cold and hollow. They tell him they're getting old and just want him to find a career and settle down. Fan Fan forces a smile, already knowing the script by heart. But their expressions are devoid of any warmth, their eyes like empty voids. They reveal they've already chosen a bride for him, and the engagement will happen today. He struggles against their grip, demanding to know what they're talking about. But then the phrase auspicious day hits him like a bolt of lightning. He remembers a rule from his own story. The ghost parents must find replacements on this day. Suddenly, something violent erupts from beneath the father's bandages. Red tendrils burst from his head as he screams that Fan Fan has no choice but to get married. He screams in terror, trying to break free from the monstrous grip. The imposter mother's voice whispers for him to stop fighting, as her true, horrifying face is revealed, insisting this is for his own good. Fan Fan can only stare in disbelief at the creatures his parents have become. They shriek in unison that he must get married today, their own survival depending on it. Their words are a torrent of twisted affection, promising freedom once he has a family of his own. Broken and desperate, Fan Fan finally screams that he'll do whatever they want. His sudden surrender catches the two monsters completely off guard, but their shock quickly melts into a slow, triumphant smile. They erupt into a chorus of manic laughter, overjoyed that their son has finally agreed. Their monstrous forms turn as a new silhouette appears in the doorway. In an instant, they're human again, announcing their return with a present for Fan Fan. Our boy can only stare, a cold sweat breaking out across his face. The imposter's eyes glow with a malevolent glee, savoring his terror. The mother beckons the newcomer inside, while Fan Fan stands frozen in place. They drag a heavy, dripping sack behind them, leaving a trail of blood and water on the floor. The father proudly calls it a gift, as the others gather around in morbid excitement. He opens the bag to reveal a terrified, bloodied woman in a red dress. Fan Fan's mind races, connecting this to the mass disappearance and the rules of his own story. He realizes with dawning horror that this woman, his bride, is still alive. He kneels beside her, the horrifying truth sinking in. He remembers the rules of his own creation. They need a living sacrifice. The woman on the floor can only tremble in fear, her eyes wide with terror. And Fan Fan is trapped right there with her, his mind reeling from the nightmare. The imposters grab him, urging him to meet the bride they've chosen. But as he fights back, a strange golden energy flares from his hand. The creature screams in agony, shocked that Fan Fan can actually harm it. A new power awakens within him, his eyes glowing with an emerald light. He shoves the monster back, no longer just a helpless pawn in their game. And in a flash, something sharp slices through the air. But his hand is caught mid-air, ensnared by a white ribbon that burns against his golden energy. The imposter mother and her duplicate appear, annoyed that their gift was damaged but promising they have more. In a flash, Fan Fan is completely bound by the strange, unbreakable silk. He struggles in disbelief. His new power can sever a ghost's hand but can't break these ribbons. Before he can react, his head is violently forced downwards. Two versions of the bandaged father slam him and the terrified woman into a bow. Their faces are smashed together in a horrifying forced marriage ceremony. The two mothers loom over them, chanting for the new husband and wife to complete the ritual. Fan Fan is trapped, bruised, and utterly defeated. But his captors aren't finished, offering to switch to something prettier for the next part of the ceremony. With a sinister smile, the imposter mother unlocks the front door. She and the bandaged man return, covered in fresh blood and dragging more sacks behind them. They drag their gruesome cargo across the floor, leaving a sickening trail in their wake. The sacks are emptied, revealing more terrified women, all bloodied and thrown onto the floor like discarded dolls. Fan Fan kneels, bound and helpless in a sea of victims, surrounded by the ghostly imposters. A chorus of voices rises around him, a single chilling demand. The imposters' faces are twisted in manic glee as they chant for the wedding to proceed, and the shadows themselves seem to join in, their silent mouths echoing the terrifying order. But something inside Fan Fan finally snaps, his eyes burning with a cold fury. The golden energy on his hand ignites with renewed power. One of the fathers lunges forward, its monstrous form erupting as it screams for the wedding to continue. Though still held down by shadowy hands, Fan Fan refuses to yield. He channels all of his rage into that single point of light, and unleashes a devastating blow that engulfs the creature in golden flames. The other imposters shriek in panic, desperate to stop his rampage. Just then, a familiar white ribbon snakes around his wrist. He's ensnared once again, held in place by the imposter mother and her duplicates. Fan Fan looks down in shock, unable to understand why his power is being contained. But their attention is suddenly ripped away from Fan Fan towards the front door. A faint click echoes through the apartment as the doorknob begins to turn on its own. The door bursts open, revealing a new figure silhouetted in the frame. In a flash, she strikes out, sending the imposters reeling in pain. She steps calmly into the chaos, her boots clicking against the floor. The ghostly parents can only stare, stunned by her sudden, violent entrance. A playful, dangerous smile spreads across the newcomer's face. She greets the monsters with a cheerful smile, calling them auntie and uncle. And then she introduces herself as Su Xia, Zhao Fan's fiancée. Su Xia surveys the gruesome scene, the ghostly imposters cowering around their captive. Her gaze darkens as she focuses on the man at the center of the chaos. But her eyes light up with a twisted cheerfulness as she asks about the wedding ceremony. One of the fathers tightens its grip on Fan Fan, asking if he's done something to displease her. She puts on a show of heartbreak, questioning why he'd marry someone else after his promises to her. A sinister thought seems to cross her mind, as a wicked-looking dagger materializes in her hand. In a flash, it finds its mark in the eye of an imposter. She erupts in a jealous rage, screaming his name as she charges forward. And with blinding speed, she begins to cut a bloody path through the crowd of monsters. A strange memory surfaces, a child's voice declaring they want a new mother. The imposter parents share a twisted, nostalgic smile. Meanwhile, the other captive women are consumed by a crimson mist. Fan Fan cries out as the same dark energy swirls around him, but the imposters are ecstatic, believing this is a match made in heaven. They playfully scold Fan Fan for keeping such a wonderful fiancé a secret. Fan Fan stares at the pink-haired woman, the pieces clicking into place with dawning dread. Su Xia then takes the imposter mother's hand in a surprisingly gentle gesture. The creature happily accepts her as the one true bride for her son. And with a sickeningly sweet smile, Su Xia thanks her new auntie. She playfully suggests calling the creature Mom, fully embracing her new role. The imposter father is overjoyed, believing his son has finally found happiness. But Fan Fan knows she's a character from his own stories, confused by her romantic obsession. And then the name hits him, a jolt of terrifying recognition. He remembers her now, the obsessive villainess from one of his own manga. He recalls her immense power from the story, realizing she might be the key to defeating the true villain. Still, he can't understand why a character from a different story has appeared here. He then notices the strange markings on his arm are reacting to her presence. Before he can process it, Su Xia throws her arms around him, overjoyed to be reunited. Her words are a torrent of obsessive affection, her eyes gleaming with a dangerous love. She whispers that she's been waiting for him to fulfill his promise to marry her. But her words trigger a painful, fragmented memory. He remembers being at the dam, making that exact promise as the world fell apart around them. Back in the present, her embrace tightens with a crushing, inhuman force. She demands to know if he's lying to her, her grip becoming unbearable. He cries out in agony, realizing her affection is a weapon in itself. He knows he has to pacify her if he wants to survive this encounter. So he forces himself to play along, assuring her he never forgot his promise. Her expression immediately shifts to one of pure, tearful joy. He looks her in the eyes, telling her everything she wants to hear, and she believes every word. But as Fan Fan watches, something strange begins to happen to the imposter mother. Her stomach starts to swell at an alarming rate, a detail Su Xia seems to question. The ghostly parents ignore this, instead offering their new guest a bowl of freshly made soup. Su Xia happily accepts the offering, while Fan Fan can only watch in horror. She peers into the crimson liquid, where the face of a terrified girl is reflected. The imposters insist it's made with the finest ingredients to welcome her to the family. With a knowing smile, Su Xia notes that it smells like it was made from the imposter father's bones. She raises the bowl to her lips, seemingly ready to join their twisted family ritual. But in a sudden move, she violently smashes the bowl against the floor. She chokes and sputters, blood pouring from her mouth as if she's been poisoned. Her eyes roll back as she begins to lose consciousness, collapsing backwards directly into Fan Fan's arms. With tears in her eyes, she accuses him of knowing the soup was poisoned and letting her drink it anyway. She asks if he's trying to abandon her, to leave her to die so he can be free. But Fan Fan knows this is all an act, a performance designed to lure their true enemy out of the shadows. He plays along with her charade, feigning panic as he realizes their plan is working. As if on cue, a sinister energy erupts from the shattered remains of the bowl. The ghostly parents gloat that the soup's purpose was to make the two of them merge into one. Su Xia looks up, feigning confusion at the idea of merging together. But her confusion instantly melts into manic excitement, thrilled by the idea of becoming one with Fan Fan forever. The ghostly parents embrace, their forms twisting as the dark energy consumes them. But their union is a violent one, as one of the creatures erupts in a shower of gore. It lets out a final agonizing shriek, before its body completely dissolves into a crimson mist. Fan Fan realizes his theory was correct, as the mist begins to take a new shape. From the bloody remains, a new entity rises, a camera hanging from its neck. Fan Fan's blood runs cold. He knows this is the camera fiend from his stories. The fiend looks down on them with glowing red eyes, calling them his perfect parents. He raises the camera, offering to take their wedding photo. He explains that once the picture is taken, they will all truly become one family. A memory flashes, showing Fan Fan at his desk, sketching out a new character. He recalls the very first story he ever wrote, The Tale of the Camera Fiend, a story he decided to base on his own painful experiences. The character was an orphan, forever watching the happy families he could never have. He became a wedding photographer, capturing moments of joy that only deepened his own resentment. His loneliness twisted into a dark obsession, unable to comprehend why he was so alone. Eventually, his jealousy consumed him, and he began hunting down happy families to steal their souls. But knowing their love was a lie, he ended his own life before the police could take him. Back in the present, Fan Fan looks the creature in the eye and calls out its true name, Lin Chuan. The camera fiend recoils in shock, demanding to know how he could possibly know that name. Fan Fan continues to lay out the creature's entire history, a lonely orphan desperate for a family's love. The fiend can only tremble in rage, ordering him to be silent. But Fan Fan presses on, describing how that loneliness festered into a murderous obsession. He calls the creature pathetic, and Lin Chuan explodes in fury, screaming that Fan Fan has no right to judge him. Fan Fan simply smirks, telling the fiend that he understands him better than anyone, because he was the one who created him. Lin Chuan freezes, the words hitting him with the force of a physical blow. Fan Fan reveals the truth. The camera fiend was the main character of his very first manga, based on his own pain. The revelation shatters more than just the fiend's composure, as the room erupts with his power. Lin Chuan's rage boils over, blaming his own creator for his twisted existence. And with a final murderous scream, the camera fiend lunges straight for Fan Fan. Fan Fan is still reeling from the pain of Su Xiaomei's bone-crushing hug. He sees the fiend's attack coming, knowing he's too slow to dodge it. Lin Chuan roars with laughter, certain of his victory. But at the last second, a hand catches the blade just inches from its target. Su Xiaomei has thrown herself in front of Fan Fan, effortlessly stopping the fiend's attack. Her eyes glow with a possessive fire as she declares that only she has the right to kill him. Fan Fan realizes she knew she was never in danger, and she playfully reminds him that they're even now. In a moment of levity, she calls him awful for tricking her first. The camera fiend's weapon clatters to the ground as he loses his grip. But the fight is far from over, as a giant foot suddenly slams down before them. Lin Chuan's rage consumes him, declaring the impostors unworthy of being his parents. Su Xiaomei turns to Fan Fan, asking if killing the fiend means she can finally take him away. With their deal struck, the horde of ghostly parents lunges forward to attack. But Su Xiaomei looks down on the approaching hands with utter disgust. She unleashes a wave of crimson energy, her hair whipping around her as she orders them back. Thorny vines erupt from the ground, tearing through the crowd of imposters. Surrounded by the gruesome aftermath, she turns to Fan Fan and asks if he finds her beautiful. His flustered silence earns him a disappointed pout. Meanwhile, Lin Chuan's fury reaches its peak as he screams for all of them to die. Fan Fan's eyes widen in alarm, realizing the fiend is about to use his true power. Fan Fan shouts out a desperate plan, telling Su Xiaomei to throw him. She obliges, wrapping a thorny vine around his leg. And with a mighty heave, she launches him directly at the camera fiend. Lin Chuan raises his camera, preparing to unleash his soul-freezing power. As Fan Fan flies through the air, he sees the ghostly images of the fiend's past victims. He lands with practiced ease, grabbing a fallen dagger from the floor. The golden energy on his hand surges, enveloping the blade in light. But as he strikes, his arm is suddenly stopped mid-air, caught in an unseen grip. Lin Chuan holds him fast, his red eyes burning with rage as he neutralizes the attack. The remaining ghostly parents can only watch, shocked by the sudden stalemate. The ghostly parents suddenly shriek, scrambling desperately for falling photographs. Each one is a wedding picture, but the faces of the couple have been violently scratched away. They clutch the ruined memories, wailing in agony as a dark energy envelops them. And standing above them all is a new figure, a silver-haired man with an unnerving calm. With a cold gaze, he gives the fiend a final, chilling order to get his revenge. The horde of ghostly parents turns on Lin Chuan, swarming him in a frenzy of dark tendrils. The camera fiend screams in pure agony as he's torn apart by his own creations. His body erupts in a blinding flash of crimson light, consuming everything around him. Fan Fan is caught in the blast, dark energy coiling around his arm and neck. His eyes meet the fiend's one last time, a final silent exchange between a creator and his tragic monster. He recognizes the name of the fiend's final attack, a power he now seems to possess. A spectral image of a woman appears before him, a manifestation of the power he's just absorbed. He realizes he can use the fiend's ability, a 3-second window that could mean the difference between life and death. Su Xiaomei rushes to his side, feigning concern over his bleeding eye. He brushes it off, finally understanding that the strange markings on his arm can absorb the powers of the ghosts he defeats. With this new understanding, he turns to Su Xiaomei and asks how she managed to leave her own story. She answers with a sly smile, suggesting that he was the one who woke her up. Her cryptic answer only leaves Fan Fan more confused as she presses him about his memory. But his confusion is taken as a lie, and her playful expression instantly vanishes. Her power flares as she accuses him of breaking a promise he doesn't even remember making. Her eyes burn with a murderous light as she raises the dagger, ready to strike. But before she can, Fan Fan's hand shoots out and grabs her wrist, stopping her cold. Her fury vanishes in an instant, replaced by a look of pure, starstruck adoration. Seeing his chance, Fan Fan pulls her close, silencing her rage with a desperate kiss. But as he holds her, the markings on his arm flare to life with a sinister red glow. The dark energy spreads like a poison, crawling up his neck and across his face. His eyes snap open in agony as the power surges through him. He stumbles backward, crying out in pain as Su Xiaomei asks what's wrong. The overwhelming force brings him crashing down to his knees. She looks down at him, her voice laced with a strange curiosity as she points to his face. He stares in shock, the crimson markings now consuming half of his face. He clutches his head, the agonizing pain making him question his own reality. But Su Xiaomei's hand presses against his chest, assuring him this is his world. She explains that the markings are eating away at his life, but merging with ghostly powers can feed the curse. Leaning over him, she offers to help him in her own special way. Her eyes glow with a dangerous desire, calling her own power the sweetest nourishment. She presses closer, urging him to accept her help. The scene shifts to a comedic fantasy as she eagerly offers to nourish her beloved. But Fan Fan pushes her back, desperately demanding to know the truth about the markings and how she escaped her story. She simply smiles, once again asking if he wasn't the one who awakened her in the first place. Fan Fan can only offer a nervous smile as Su Xiaomei's expression darkens. Her eyes glow with a possessive fire as she accuses him of lying about his promise to marry her. He quickly tries to placate her, knowing he needs her calm to get any answers. He assures her the vow was real, explaining that the markings appeared after the dam exploded. Fan Fan recounts being trapped in the nightmare loop, asking what really happened that day. His question sends Su Xiaomei deep into a painful, distant memory. The flashback begins with a horrifying blood-red eye filling the sky. A horde of monsters swarms a strange, jester-like figure wielding a chainsaw. Su Xiaomei was there too, fighting with a confident and deadly grace. And so was Fan Fan, wielding a strange power as he called out her name. Fan Fan's mind races, realizing the clown fiend is another one of his creations. Su Xiaomei holds him close, proudly confirming that she was the one who saved him. She looks into his eyes, telling him she could never let him die because she loves him too much. He knows himself well. In that desperate moment, she was the only one he would have called for. But he asks why she wasn't there when he woke up, guessing she hid him with the ghost parents. Her playful demeanor turns sharp as she warns him that a kiss won't always solve his doubts. Fan Fan quickly changes his tune, assuring her he knows she hid him to shield him from the other fiends. It all clicks into place. This was a trap he set for himself before his memory was wiped. But one question remains, and he asks why she left him all alone in that house. Her expression shifts to pure terror as she explains that something far worse was chasing her. Fan Fan is stunned, realizing he's never seen this kind of genuine fear on her face before. She explains that its presence was so overwhelming it nearly suffocated her. With Fan Fan unconscious, she had no choice but to hide him and lead the entity away, but he was gone when she returned. He understands now. Her terror is real, and this new threat is on a completely different level. She describes a presence so cold it could freeze the very bones in your body. Fan Fan theorizes that this entity could be the source of everything, a concept she doesn't understand. He connects the dam's collapse and the appearance of the fiends all back to this one singular entity. She asks if he's implying this source is the one that created them. He clarifies that it may not be their creator, but it's definitely involved, and facing it now would be a death sentence. The strange markings on his arm seem to pulse with a quiet, dark energy. But Fan Fan is certain that once he remembers everything, he'll find the entity's weakness. He wonders if his memories were stolen because he, as the creator, is the only one who could defeat it. Outside, a sudden flash of lightning illuminates the dark room. He rises to his feet, a new resolve hardening his expression. Su Xiaomei looks up at him, sensing the shift in his demeanor. She asks him what he plans to do next. Fan Fan declares their next target is the clown fiend, who woke up at the dam before he did. He reasons that the fiend must know more about the entity that's been hunting them. Finding him is the first key to unlocking this mystery, and the first step in fighting back. Su Xiaomei seems intrigued by the plan, asking where they should even begin their search. Fan Fan recalls the clown fiend's backstory, knowing the creature's obsession will lead it back to its origin. Su Xiaomei listens intently, asking where they can find this fiend. He reveals their destination is the Truth Circus, vowing to take back the life that was stolen from him. The two arrive at the ominous Big Top, a place of manufactured joy turned into a real-life nightmare. A single, determined step carries them through the entrance, and into the heart of the clown fiend's twisted domain. Inside, they find a terrified audience, trapped in a horrifying spectacle. The crowd can only watch in silent, tearful horror at the show. On stage, a woman is strapped to a spinning wheel, the centerpiece of a deadly game, and below her stands the ringmaster of this madness, the clown fiend himself. The clown fiend's face fills the screen, his eyes glowing as he welcomes them to his show. He hurls a volley of knives with a flick of his wrist, each one finding its mark on the spinning wheel around the terrified woman. She can only scream in agony, pinned to the board by the fiend's cruel game. The fiend mockingly thanks his beautiful assistant for her magnificent teamwork. He then turns to the crowd, announcing the greatest trick in history, cutting a living person in half. A sickening splash erupts from the stage as the clown fiend revs a massive chainsaw, ready for his grand finale. He scans the horrified crowd, asking for a brave volunteer to complete the performance with him. The audience is forced to applaud, their smiles twisted with terror and tears. The fiend's face darkens as he asks if there are truly no volunteers. But a voice cuts through the silence as Fan Fan raises his hand, a confident smirk on his face. The clown fiend's gaze falls upon the two figures standing in the aisle. He recognizes them from the dam and eagerly invites the brave gentleman to join him on stage. Su Xia tries to stop him, but Fan Fan gently pushes her back, telling her to just watch. He recognizes the chainsaw, a weapon straight from his own original story. Fan Fan recalls the fiend's power level, knowing that with his new abilities he has a fighting chance. More than that, the markings on his arm are practically screaming, hungry to devour the fiend's ghostly energy. He steps onto the stage, standing defiantly before his own creation and its massive weapon. The clown fiend gloats about his chainsaw, calling it an old friend that's helped him create countless works of art. He then conjures a bouquet of red roses, a twisted offering in this theater of horrors. He presents them to Su Xia, warning her to stay back and enjoy the show as he cuts her man to pieces. But she simply smiles, declaring that wherever Fan Fan goes, she will follow, and with a cheerful grin, she crushes the thorny bouquet in her bare hands. Unfazed, the clown fiend turns back to Fan Fan, ready to begin his so-called magic trick. Fan Fan's eyes narrow, his expression cold and determined. The fiend gestures to a box on the stage, the centerpiece for his deadly illusion. Without a hint of fear, Fan Fan lies down inside the coffin-like prop. He looks up at the fiend, calmly noting that his old friend seems a little nervous. The clown fiend grips the chainsaw, its dark energy pulsing with anticipation. He leans in close, promising Fan Fan will soon learn the joy of being torn apart. But Fan Fan's taunt about a past failure hits a nerve, sending the fiend into a rage. He brings the massive weapon down with a furious roar, but a single hand stops the blade, golden energy flaring against the dark power. The clown fiend can only stare in disbelief as Fan Fan holds the chainsaw at bay. Our boy smirks, explaining the weapon isn't nervous and it recognizes him. The chainsaw's dark tendrils seem to pull away from the fiend, drawn to a new power. Fan Fan's hand closes around the handle, his own energy claiming the weapon. He stands over the stunned creature, declaring that his old friend has chosen a new master. The clown fiend grovels on the floor, begging his new master to spare him. He holds up two small cards, desperately trying to appease the man who now holds his life in his hands. Tears stream down his face, his manic grin now twisted into a mask of pure terror. But Fan Fan isn't interested in apologies. He demands to know what happened at the dam. The fiend trembles, promising to tell him everything he wants to know. But in an instant, his expression shifts, a sinister glint in his eyes as he prepares a final trick. Fan Fan sees right through the act, unimpressed by the creature's desperate gambit. With a final taunt, the clown fiend bites down on a smoke bomb, ready to vanish. A massive cloud erupts from the stage, obscuring everything from view. But Fan Fan is faster, cutting through the smoke with a single decisive swing of his new weapon. He screams out Su Xiaomei's name, a desperate warning. But she's already there, intercepting the clown fiend's escape. A cage of thorny vines erupts around her, a beautiful and deadly display of power. The fiend is instantly impaled, caught fast in her thorny trap. Fan Fan stands over the fallen creature, telling him he knew he wouldn't play fair. But the clown fiend just laughs, mocking their attempt to hold him. And in a flash, the creature's head shatters like a porcelain doll. Fan Fan realizes with a jolt that it was just a substitute, a cheap magic trick. The real clown fiend appears behind the audience, his hand on a massive lever. And as he pulls it, the entire crowd turns, their eyes glowing with a malevolent red light. Fan Fan and Su Xiaomei stand back to back, surrounded by the now possessed audience. The clown fiend offers a final taunt before making his escape. Fan Fan weighs his options, deciding his new power isn't worth wasting on a long-shot attack. As the crowd closes in, he shouts for Su Xiaomei not to harm the innocent civilians. She's annoyed by the escape, while Fan Fan realizes his creations are evolving beyond his control. But he holds up the chainsaw, confident that its dark energy will lead them right to its former master. The weapon's blade glows with a sinister crimson light. Su Xiaomei senses the danger, warning him that this could be another trap. The dark tendrils begin to snake around his hand, drawn to his power. And with a calm resolve, Fan Fan begins to absorb the fiend's lingering energy. The dark energy solidifies into a strange, pulsing ring on his finger. He smirks, realizing the fiend's power has accepted him as its new master. But Su Xiaomei sees only the lingering evil, offering to cut off his finger for him. She playfully debates the idea, torn between wanting his bones and keeping him whole. The ring's dark energy then forms a trail, a spectral guide leading them forward. It leads them to an ominous inn, the place where the clown fiend is hiding. He senses danger, but Su Xiaomei reminds him of another promise he made. He quickly reassures her, promising to fulfill her wish once their mission is complete. With their goal in sight, he pushes open the heavy doors, and together they step into the darkness, ready to face whatever lies within. They step inside, and the air is immediately thick with a palpable sense of dread. Fan Fan's eyes widen in horror, a single terrible thought crossing his mind.